My sister gave me good advice. She was like, I don't know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And if people don't know me, if people don't know you,
They wouldn't recognize the voice sort of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. They don't have an idea. So she recommended me to put together some intros for the podcast. I'll read them here.
Yeah.
They call him the doctor, but I wouldn't take any medical advice. He'll send you to the doghouse. The M to the E, the D to the K. It's Daryl Kenna.
There you go. That's a good one. I like it. I like it.
So why do they call you the doctor? Where did that come from?
I think that's more like because I was very sort of precise and surgical in my sort of approach. I think more than anything, like I'll dissect it and get it done. So
Okay. So you pull things apart.
Yeah.
What age did this nickname come?
I would say probably around 12, 13 they called. And I also used to really love, like I've always loved sports, but I love in sports, I like what I call super performers of the stuff. And at that time it was a pitcher named Dwight Gooden, and his nickname was Dr. K because he'd strike out. If you ever watch a baseball game in the stands, every time you get a strikeout, it's called a K, but they would line it up in like little place cards in the stands. So if you got one strikeout, there's one, and then line it up. But this guy was an extraordinary pitcher, really derailed in life, but that's another story. But that was his nickname, Dr. K, because he would strike everybody out. So it was all in that sort of window that they would call me the doctor.
Okay, this is what I wrote for myself.
Yeah.
Me? Well, you'll find me at the corner of half redneck and wannabe monk working on my chi. My hour, it's Howard Hour. You're listening to Wes Howery. The Howard Hour actually came from a nickname from university. Like my friends used to call me Howard. And so it actually came from parties where we would be at a party and my buddy Greg would say, it's Howard Hour, and everyone would have to kind of match me drink for drink.
The archipelago awaits.
Let's talk about vision.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about it.
I feel like I've been almost lied to from business school, but it's kind of like as you live something, you have like a deeper understanding of what that thing is. And there's almost layers to the depth of understanding.
Yeah.
So when I was in school, I always pictured vision being some short, sexy phrase that you can put on a wall and you can point at it and be like, okay, this is how we can change the world.
Yep.
Right? They use it's almost like the grand marketing of companies where Apple, you can say like, think differently. Or, Tesla is to make the world sustainable, transition to sustainable energy. Right? But as I kind of live and kind of grow in the business world, it's like that's not really what vision is at all. It's kind of like that's what it ends up boiling down to after you spend like years and years trying to figure out what it is, what you're even doing.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that's right. I think this idea, when you hear those taglines, they're incredible taglines. You're going, wow. And imagine that company 50 years ago, they woke up, started the company, and the first day they had that, it'd be like, so then everything you do sort of pales in comparison. But I find it'd be very interesting if we could go historically and see every 5 years what that one looked like. I find for ourselves, we've refined it in a sense. And so to me, that vision is kind of where we want to end up. And maybe once we end up closer to there someday, then we change it. And, I don't know if that's when they change it to one that now that they've got there, they can say that. Or more importantly, to your point about being lied to, is that you've lived it and this is actually a better reflection. So I think it's evolving, dynamic.
Yeah, because if I think of our business like 3-4 years ago, it's not even close to what we're doing today.
Yep.
Like it's not even close. And then, so when I thought vision in the past, I thought short, sexy sentence.
Yep.
And now when I think vision today, I think that it's a way that you picture the future. It's almost like you're envisioning the future and you're visualizing the future. And you're kind of picturing a future that you want to be in. Yeah. And when it comes to the business sense, it's kind of like, what's that niche that your business does? Yeah. And how does that affect the world?
Yeah.
And that boils down to different layers, right? So I feel like you see the highest layer that's to change the world.
Yeah.
But the lowest layer, that vision I don't think really gets described as too often, is that you can boil it down to the smallest finite details because it's just a way of being in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, again, that vision is like where we ultimately, like to your point, is one day if we woke up and we were living the vision, we would be in that, those words would kind of describe, I don't know, the feeling or where we're at, right? So ours, on ours, we did it quite really simple. We did it wealth, security, excellence. So if we ever arrived at that thing, we would have provided wealth for those that came on the journey, obviously. Security in the sort of the manner in which we got there, like the units of risk. And the excellence is an important one, is that we operated or executed at the highest level. So those are the three that we would get to that window that we would arrive. If we ever arrived there, that's what it would feel like, those three things. So then that to your point doesn't say what do we do today in this exact moment to get there. It's really about, that's where we want to arrive.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at. For us, it's to create brilliant software, but we envision a world where we can bring any object to life. So for example, say you have like a Pepsi can in your hand. You could then say, okay, well, how much sugar is in this Pepsi can? The Pepsi can could talk back to you. You could say, okay, well, what happens if I drink 20 of you a day? Yeah. And then it could actually tell you what's going to happen if you drink 20 to you a day. So what we're working on right now is we're working on doing that with businesses. So we can actually bring your business to life. So we can say like, okay, well, are you financially healthy, right? What does the operations look like? Or your business can talk back to you when there's actually something wrong going on inside of it. It can talk back to you. But what I really like is Netflix has a culture deck, and it's about 120 slides, and they lay out in finite detail, like kind of each step of the company. So me and my business partner, when we were talking about the vision of the company, we were like, because we're a software development company, we're like, well, how do we picture people writing software, right? That's the low level. The high level is, okay, we bring things to life. We write brilliant software. The low level is, okay, well, what does it actually look like and feel like to be a developer inside of the company? How do people get treated? Like, what kind of benefits? What kind of vacation policy? What kind of business do I want to be in? When I picture myself working with people inside of the business, what are we talking about? What are we thinking about? What is that? What is that vision of inside of the company? Because for us, it's working on hard problems. It's trying to solve hard problems, and it's picturing a place where we can kind of foster the environment to be able to solve really hard problems and be focused on that vision. But that's the really low level details of it, where I feel like that's where in a company, leadership can really picture that and then be able to shape the environment to create it.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. In that, I go back to your Pepsi can, though. I was really curious when you were saying that, and you're holding the can in your hand as a visual, and you say, what would happen if I drank 20 of you? So I'm just visualizing, is this can going to lie to you? Or say, you want the truth, or you want me to lie to you?
Just to say, put me down.
Put me down.
Stop talking to me.
So don't drink me. Okay, so I think they'd have to, so some honesty in advertising. But you're right. I think every day that sometimes that vision statement seems a million miles away for a lot of people. So because of what do we do on a day-to-day basis? So I suspect that Netflix one sort of laid out kind of more functionality, how we're going to view things sort of more granular on a lower level to say that we can understand it. Because otherwise you walk in and you say your vision statement, and you go, okay, get to it. And they're like it's just like, it is about 1,000 miles. So it's like going on a road trip. It's the destiny. It's now what we want to do is break down those spots that we're going to go to. We're going to travel this much today. This is what it'll look like. And we have to break it down like that. Otherwise, it's asking, I think, too much for people. Because what might be clear in your mind or your partner's mind might not be clear in everybody once they walk through the door. So I think you got to say, this is how we're going to do it. Comprise that so we arrive at those ones.
And then back to your point on how it changes over time.
Yeah.
Because if you start at the lowest level and you're able to define kind of those low levels, they're almost like steps that help you get to that bigger vision.
Yeah.
Because you can set up that bigger vision, but as you're climbing those steps, well, the staircase might go off in a different direction, but that's because you're setting those building blocks to be able to build there.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is we have an idea of what the company we want it to look like today, and it's just through our minds today. And in 1, 2, 3 years from now, maybe circumstances, life, there's things that might evolve and say, hey, this is what we do. So I'd go back to when you're using Netflix and you think about its roots in Blockbuster or whatever. Well, they might have had a vision, but the world changed right before their, right in their timeline, and next thing you know. So there's a whole bunch of things that could happen. So I think we've got to be dynamic enough to say, look, this is where we sit today with all the inputs that we have. And then we start to head, and then we can refine it, define it, and change it if we need be. But
yeah, I actually really like that example, Netflix versus Blockbuster,
yeah,
because it really is dependent on your ability to mold the world.
Yep.
Because if we look at Blockbuster, say they had the most amazing vision of being able to provide entertainment to everyone,
right,
and they were trying to mold the world in the way that they saw it, they envisioned it in the future. But if you're not able to adjust because you can't mold the world in that direction because the momentum's against you, then you have to adjust.
Yeah, I can just imagine like how many, I'd be really curious to how many businesses had the vision all set and then COVID hit. What, then what happens there, right? Let's say your vision was to have the most office space in the world because everybody wants office space. COVID hits. Oh boy. So I think you have to be able to adjust in the businesses and not be so. Obviously, I think it's more of a, I'd say more of a compass direction. That's where we want to end up in that vicinity, but we have to have the flexibility. It can't be so refined that it's the map of every step. But I think we take those steps and live it as we journey on the business.
Yeah, because then the other thing that went through my mind is like, really, how important is having that vision? Because I picture myself as a consumer and I picture like the things around me. I have a Yeti coffee cup. If you ask me what's the vision of Yeti, I have no idea. I have Lululemon shorts on. It's like, it's probably something about being athletic, but I honestly have no idea what it is. So it's like, at that point, it's like, does vision matter externally, or is it just more of an internal motivator to kind of group like-minded people?
Yeah, I think you see those ones that you recognize, and I think it's from over time that there's been exposure. Again, that would be very interesting internally if that was always front and center. But I would argue that it's more of an internal thing. It's more that I always view these things as whether it's vision, mission, purpose, core value. All of those things are helped so that people internally first can see what we're trying to do, what we're trying to build, and it's kind of like that roadmap as best we know it at that moment. So I think these are tools, communication tools for the team actually inside. Because to your point, I don't think you go, okay, before I buy a product, I'm going to go look at the thing and see if that matches my. I don't know if that. I think it's more about the practicality of the thing, whether it feels like it fits in what you're doing, if that makes sense. But I don't think we lay out. I can speak for myself. I've never laid out the vision and said, well, because of that vision, I'm going to not buy or buy.
As a consumer, it's almost more of a luxury. Because if I think of like a brand like Patagonia, okay, well, I know that Patagonia is trying to like create a sustainable earth. Like they're trying to make our home last as long as it can. So they have those premium prices, they have premium products, and if it ever rips, they'll repair it for you.
Yeah.
But at that point, it's almost a luxury to say like, you know what, I actually really believe in that. So I'm going to go to my way, spend extra money because I support what they're doing.
Yeah.
But that's because they also grew over there
that's
to get to that point,
well,
to then be able to have the consumer recognize it.
They've been around, some of these companies, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Coca-Cola, 100 plus years. And it's just sort of entrenched in our minds, if that makes sense. So they become more than anything, that's it. It's not, right? But I think what you say is that once you hear the name, you understand what probably the quality and consistency of it, right? I don't drink pop particularly, but Coke, you know what it would probably would taste like if you did it at McDonald's all the way down to the Lulu's and all that. You know roughly, what area you're in, if that makes sense, because they've done a very good job of marketing and branding it. But again, I think the mission one is more internally about the guidance of what they're trying to do. And
Yeah, I think you're right, because if you put yourself in a company like Lululemon, and if you have a solid understanding of the vision, like what they're trying to create in the world, then you design the stores to have that feeling. And those stores have consistency all across the world. And when you walk into a Lululemon, when you walk into a Starbucks, it's consistent because internally they've designed it to be able to match that vision of what they're trying to build.
100%.
And that's where, I agree that 100% after kind of going from in business school to seeing these sexy slogans to wanting to craft those to living it more, it's more of an internal alignment tool where you can point at it and you can say like, okay, are we making the right decisions for this? And then also be able to kind of group people that want to drive towards it.
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting is when we think about even names like Lulu or Starbucks and go down there, I think we spend a lot of time, I've always seen this with, from a marketing perspective, it's like we're going to spend a lot of time and energy on a name because the name means everything. Like, Nike is, and in my mind, I think that's where the separation, the lie is, if you want to make sense, because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's just pick a name, if you want to call it. And I mean, it has to be consistent, like for instance, and something that makes sense. So you can't be in one thing that you say, well, there's no way that name would mean X for anybody's consciousness. You'd say and you can't be in the wrong spot. But if it was just a standard name of something, names of people, names of like Berkshire Hathaway, that you think, what the heck is that? And it was an old textile mill that was, Warren Buffett bought. But it's just the time and consistency and added, right? So we were in California down in a place called down in where were we? It was Abbot Kinney was the neighborhood down in Marina Del Rey, and so Renee and I were there, and she said, "There's this incredible place, and it has all types of food. We should go. I can't wait." And she checked out the menu, and I'm not a vegan or vegetarian, so I like a little bit more variety. It was called The Butcher's Daughter. So I started to think about the name, and I'm like, to me, the butcher's daughter would be no meat. Because what happened is you grew up with the butcher and he killed all the meat, and I'm the daughter, and I'm like, I don't want anything to do with that. And she claimed it was great, that variety. So I get there and it's vegetarian vegan. So I'm like, and I said, well, the name said it, the butcher's daughter. And she goes, what are you talking about? And I said, well, it's because of the fact that the daughter watched him kill all the animals and said, I'm not doing that. I'm going a different direction. So very interesting, right? So how in the name, it's there if you hunt. But I think branding, what's in a name? I think it's just name plus Coca-Cola, name plus 100 years of time. Then it becomes. So we spend so much time on X. I don't think it mattered what they called it. It's not that product is what that consistency, right? Whether it's Lulu, whether it's Starbucks, McDonald's, it's, you go these names that we recognize, Nike, like, what is that like, right? So very interesting.
Yeah, it's very abstract.
It is.
It's the thing that you put together is that thing that you can touch and you can feel it, right? If it's Nike, it's the clothes or the shoe brand, or you see the shoes on the athletes, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that you can see and you can look, and then now you're putting those two things together.
Yeah.
And then it's the experience of what it is.
100%.
So I bet, going back to the butcher's daughter, I don't think that when you go back there, you're not going to think meat anymore. After having that experience.
You mean when Renee goes back?
Yeah, that's right.
No, yeah.
You're not going to think meat after that experience, but that's the consistency of whatever that's trying to convey.
100%. The other thing to think about is, like for me, is that I think about the cars. When you talk Tesla, it's a relatively new name, but when we go back to whether it's Ford, Chrysler, GM, the big automakers. If you go back to the 1900s, in the early 1900s, I believe there was 300 or 400 automakers at the time. And I suspect that some of them probably had what you would say at that moment in time, better names, right? But they're nowhere to be found. So the only ones that stood the time is because of the quality of the product. That's hence then you go back and you remember the name. So I don't think it's the other way around, that we got to get the name right, because that's what's going to make the difference. I'm saying, no, you got to get the process or product right, and the name will follow. I really believe that. So
yeah, and that's where you'd look at, okay, having a sexy vision, but no, it's the action that's underneath the vision that builds what it is. Mm-hmm. Because I could say, you could say something completely different, like Nike has the best swimsuits, but then if all they do is wear sneakers, then it's
inconsistent.
There's a disconnect. 100%. And then no one's going to put those two things together, and then the vision's not even going to be in a line with what they're doing. So it's really the actions behind
100%
what that company is, and transitioning more to personal, what that person is. Mm-hmm. Because we've talked a lot about companies, but when it comes to your personal life, you can have that vision or that action behind your personal life. Mm-hmm. Because if I ask you, what's a perfect day? So what's a perfect summer day for you?
Well, a perfect summer day for me would look probably, I'd be in Waterton. I'd have to be there. I'd get up and just immediately, the windows would be open and you could hear outside. First of all, there's no wind, and you could hear the birds and everything. You could hear the calmness of outside. And then what I would do is I'd look out the window and I would see the lake, and it's perfectly calm, so I know what's coming because I'm going to be heading out on the boat. Probably ideally though, if I'm early enough, I can go up the Bears Hump and back, get cleaned up, have a little breakfast, and hop on the boat, and the lake is calm. Spend the morning on the lake or the day on the lake. So that's, and then the evening coming in, and then I think of fire table again, and just watching the sun go down on the mountains, and that's a perfect day for me.
And to me, that's vision. To me, what you just described there, you just envisioned perfectly. You put yourself in that situation, and you visioned what you want. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if that's company, of coming in and how do I want to treat people,
right,
to if it's your personal life and saying a summer day, you know what, I need to get that boat on the water because I picture myself out there, because that's what I'm trying to build.
Mm-hmm. And if you go back to that same one, then if I describe that to somebody and they go, what's Waterton? Where's Waterton? I don't understand. So then the job is to how do I give them the experience? How do I expose them to that over time? And I think that's it. Because we can paint the picture, but if people can't live the picture, they can nod their head, oh, that sounds good. But if they don't experience that and actually take those steps and understand each of those components and what it sounds like, what it feels like, then I think that we don't ultimately get there. I think we short suit, I sort of have always had this sort of analogy or visual, if let's say we're at the end of a street, it's let's say it's a cul-de-sac, and let's say there's this big singular house at the very end of the cul-de-sac, and you ask somebody to describe the house. And so you're standing at the corner, and then they go. And then they walk over to the house, and 2 minutes later they're back, and they go, yeah, it's like this. And they describe. And what they're doing is describing the perimeter of the house, what they can sort of visually see. And what I really want them to do is to go into the house. I want them to go into every room. What does it feel like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like? What does it look like to look out the window in the first story, second story, to live that whole thing? And because then they can bring that experience back. So again, to my visual of Waterton, my perfect day, if they have never stepped foot in Waterton, they don't understand, they don't connect to nature, they don't know what it likes to feel like to be on the boat, all those kind of things. They can nod their head intellectually and say, I think I understand. But until they're there and feel it, smell it, taste it, everything, they don't understand. So that's what we have to do in the company, is we have to paint that picture and then try to dissect it, to your point about all the components of that, so they have that understanding. So they too now, instead of just verbally saying the vision, they almost can, in their soul, feel it and live it.
And that's the first step. That first step of experience, of driving someone out to Waterton, putting them on the boat, having them catch a fish, smell how fresh the air is. Like that's the first step of the experience to then paint and feel, because then there's more of an emotional connection to what
100%.
vision is. Because even when we're picturing, because it's going to be, when it comes to your personal life, it's going to be different for pretty much everyone, right? Because everyone has different experiences. But when you think about, when you're creating the vision for your personal life, it's really thinking about like where you want to be and what world you want to put yourself into. Because for myself, it is like, I'm similar in the morning sense, as like I picture just a really slow, peaceful morning where I can either journal or think about like solving a problem, being creative. Like the one thing, like working on the intros for the podcast, like that was something that was just fun and creative for me that I just enjoyed doing and just spending time there. But it just comes from that experience. And having more of those experiences allows me to then kind of project the vision in the world that I want to live in.
No, it totally makes sense. So then how do we do it? Like when we're sitting in the company is, first of all, we spend so much time, we talked about branding a name, which is one. Now we finally got what we call the vision, but we got to take down, then we open the door and the first person walks through. We've got to take them down, and to your point, so that they connect to it, understand it in the context of what they're doing every day and how it feeds into that. You know, if, again, that consistency, when we talk of those companies 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 years old, then you have to believe that they have worked hard all the way through there of breaking down those components, and then people could understand. Again, I think the interesting thing is, do you think, let me just ask, like, let's say that we went into one of those companies, let's say we went into Nike. Do you believe that on every level somebody working there understands it too?
No, I would say there's a 0% chance. I would say it's for like the executive team and major decision makers. I think those people inside of the company all need to be aligned as much as possible. And then when you have that alignment over that thing that you're doing, that's when you create that consistent outcome. Because now then you have people responsible for those areas inside of the company that are aligned with the vision. And then that can then be kind of get distributed out in consistency. And in your case, the processes, the actions that happen in the business every single day. But then it can always funnel up or down when it comes to decision making.
Yeah, and I think I find that, like, to your point, is that I would agree it would be that sort of set of people. It always is interesting to think about, like, whether it's the story of the company or all those components. That's what would tie, how do we tie one generation to the next generation? If you're thinking about Coca-Cola, it's that history and that recognition of history, so they can see that continuity, and they're proud of being part of a company that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 generations old, right? So,
yeah, and that's what I think that is great about having that clear vision, is you actually attract people that come into the door and say, yeah, not everyone that just gets started in the company is going to be in alignment with that vision or even know what that vision is at the start. But you can have that one person, those two people that come in and be like, you know what, I really want to work here. Like for SpaceX, it's like, yeah, no, I want to get life on Mars. It's like, I'm going to work at that company because I want to see humanity go to Mars. And then that just has a different purpose behind it, which I think would be a great concept to talk about in the next episode. It was purpose, because like I'm saying, okay, the vision is life on Mars, but why am I doing that, right? I'm picturing a world that's different and I want to live in that world, but why? But why are we doing that?
And then I was thinking, when we think of longevity of companies, because we just had one on the Canadian landscape that closed their doors, Hudson Bay Company, that was, I believe it was 350 years in Canada, which is extraordinary in terms of consistency. So think about your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and everything had that as a something that's a similar that tied the generation. So how that story has to be taken. And I think once you have that time and years, then they walk in that door and they understand the sort of pedigree of the company. And I think that makes them proud too, to be part of those ones, right? But some of those ones are disappearing on the landscape because I would argue adaptability, let's say, and
the
times
ability
change
to mold the world. That's one thing actually that Jeff Bezos said that I thought was really interesting, because even what we've talked about this last half an hour has been a lot about change and all about like adapting and seeing and changing.
Yep.
But Jeff Bezos had a shareholder letter, and in that letter, he said, sometimes it's more important to focus on the things that are never going to change. So then when he looked at Amazon, he's like, okay, people are always going to want fast delivery. That's not going to change. Like, people are going to want their stuff faster and faster. If I can order something and it's here in a minute, 2 minutes, that's never going to change. Can I now build something around a concept that's never going to change?
Yeah, and I think if you look at the McDonald's story as well, the same thing is when they just that fast delivery of food, right? And that convenience, fast delivery, and that's to this day that people go in and you get the stuff in 2, 3, 4 minutes, and that's it. So that would be a constant. All the other things around can change, right? So, yeah, but you have to stay on top of. First of all, you have to be clear on what that is, and the second one is then all the other stuff that is changing, you have to be conscious of that too. So,
and then funnel into it.
100%, yeah. So,
Here.
Anchors up. Time to set sail.